Why don't we try something a little different this time around? There are a few basic foundational elements to speedrunning. Among them are a game, a timer, a rule set, and a leaderboard. We're going to focus on the last one, discuss some ways to approach them, and put together a leaderboard for a decades-old game I just realized didn't have one yet. This will be easier to talk about if I'm on camera, as I show you everything I'm trying to cover. The first thing to understand is there's no one place, no one program or script to use, and no one way to run a leaderboard. Leaderboards like those used for speedruns have been around for decades, before the internet was publicly available. It's just that instead of mailing a VHS tape or a Polaroid to a stranger's address, now you can just send a Twitch VOD or a video link directly to a stranger's leaderboard. As for places to put them, speedrun.com is one of the more popular places to host a leaderboard, as is Twin Galaxies, but those aren't the only options, because some leaderboards predate those sites' existence, or they're keeping track of certain games, and others use different rules or have different/tougher proof standards to help weed out cheaters. Just to give a few examples, there's Raid Report, which handles a bunch of Destiny speedrun leaderboards. There's Halo Runs, which, self-explanatory. There's Deer Tier, which handles all things Super Metroid. MegaManLeaderboards.net, which handles all things Mega Man. And the one I'm most familiar with, the Elite Rankings, which handles rankings for N64 shooters by Rare, particularly GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. And it even has its own unique records and ranking system to help determine who the best overall players are. So one thing to consider is whether you're going to use an already established site like speedrun.com to host a leaderboard, or build your own leaderboard, because the latter requires things like having a domain, having a site building tool, and having the software or script necessary to build a leaderboard. I'm technologically inept, so I can't go too in-depth on any of that, but there are some examples of tools that have been used to build leaderboards. These include things like GameSparks, there's Redis, and HighCharts as well. Now, regardless of what option you go with, either building your own or using an already established site, the first step is always the same, and it's make sure the leaderboard doesn't already exist. Because you can either search a site like SRC or Twin Galaxies for the game, or you can use any search engine to just look for insert game here, speedrun, leaderboard, and see if anything comes up. What makes SRC a popular choice is that it generates a leaderboard for you, and it has decent options within that leaderboard to be able to organize categories, allow timing exceptions, stuff like that. They don't let just anyone make a leaderboard for anything on this site. For one thing, in what seems like an effort to discourage people from submitting trash, they hid the game submission form in the support hub. Which, when you think about how many video games get released every day, that makes sense. I mean, last year there were over 2,000 new listings that appeared on Steam alone. Now think about console games, mobile games, DLC, browser games, other PC distributors, ROM hacks, homebrews, all together, and try putting a number to that. Even if not all those games have speedruns tied to them, that is still a staggering amount. So let's go over to the support hub. And once that loads up, this is what you'll see. You go to here, Game and Series Request, Category, and it would be Request New Game or Series, followed by the subcategory New Game. New Series is for if there's an entry on the site already, and then it becomes a series, and then you request that a series be created for it. So let's go to New Game, and it brings up some important rules. Now, when I said they won't let anyone submit anything to this site, this is part of what I meant. You have to have an account that's at least 7 days old. Moderators have to have at least 2 social media accounts attached to their account, Discord, Twitter, Twitch, etc. You have to be able to spell and capitalize correctly the name of the game that you're submitting, which sounds silly, but it actually does weed out some people. And there's additional notes to explain why you're submitting this game and why they should accept it. There's a more detailed breakdown of everything to consider when you're submitting stuff, particularly for certain categories of games, but we'll just ignore that for now. Back to what I said about not accepting just trash. There are certain types of games that they are not accepting, like short/trivial games. If your run is 10 seconds long and that's it, then they're probably not going to accept that. Generic puzzle games, typing games, geography games. You can read the rest of the list yourself. Now there are exceptions to this. So for example, geography games, GeoGuessr is a listing. And for math games, if you look for number munchers, there is a listing for that. So if something does have like enough notoriety to it or is like widely accepted, then it's slightly more likely that that leaderboard will actually be made. Now, part of why not everything gets accepted to the site is that there's this statement right here which says everything is checked manually by site staff. For a couple of reasons. Number one, there are players out there who will just actively hunt down games that do not have leaderboards made so that they can submit a run of it and claim a world record, which is kind of sad. Two, automated acceptance is already kind of an issue. There are some leaderboards that are just set to automatically accept everything, and then their leaderboards have wound up with like very obvious tool-assisted runs or otherwise cheated runs in prominent positions. Now, because it's manually reviewed, it can take a couple of weeks for individual requests to be processed, which, fine. I'll accept the manual process being slower if it means that the site doesn't get completely overrun by just absolute trash. But that brings me to the reason that I'm here, which is once upon a time I started running a game called Tin Star for the Super Nintendo. It's a Super Scope rail shooter kind of game that does actually have different endings and a couple different things you can do speed tech wise to get through the game faster. I only just realized recently the game doesn't have a leaderboard, so I figured it would be nice for one of these videos to do an experiment where we see, does this get accepted? It isn't a very prominent game. In terms of tech, there isn't relatively much to it, but it was a major console release. It's on the Super Nintendo, so probably going to get accepted, but we'll see. Now you need to provide a link to an external page describing the game from Wikipedia or Steam, basically something that's not the developer's website, and it should preferably be in English. Well, fortunately, Tin Star does have a Wikipedia article, so we'll copy the URL for that and put it here. And now we need a link to a video of the run. And for this purpose, I'm going to use the run that I did some years ago for SNES Superstars of the game. Frankly, I think I could do better than this now, but for now, just for the foundation purposes of the leaderboard, this should be okay. So we'll take that URL and put it here. The game name is Tin Star. We need the date of the first official release, so we can head back to the Wikipedia page. And this is going to be a bit of a problem. It just says November 1994 over here. And cross-referencing it with other sites like Moby Games, again, it just says November 1994. I tried researching this before recording this video. Like, is there an ad that has the specific release date? Is there any like release data or metadata that would indicate the specific day in that month of that year when it came out? But I haven't been able to find anything. So I'm just approximating in this case. If you're really unsure and you just want to split the difference, then you can just pick the middle of the month. If you don't know the exact day, you're going to be playing a guessing game no matter what. This is where you tick boxes if the game falls into a certain subcategory of games, fan games, homebrews, web games, etc. But this is just a console release, so I don't have to pay any attention to that. Additional notes is where you really sell that your game deserves to have a leaderboard. And in this case, there are some cases you can make for like different categories that you can put together for Tin Star, certain speed tech that you can use to get through Tin Star faster. So I'm going to take a moment and type that up. I won't make you watch that entire process. Alright, so I just took time to write up a quick explanation of the game. It's a rail shooter. You can have it controlled with 3 different methods. It has 3 different endings. and what they're based on, which of those is the fastest or slowest to get through, the ways that you can lose time or gain time in the game, and the way that the leaderboard would be structured. So there would be 3 categories based on the endings. You could have additional subcategory or notation based on how the game was controlled, and when timing starts, when timing stops. All of this is helpful for the people who are reviewing this because it tells them you know/understand the game, and if the leaderboard does get created for your game, you have a good idea of how you're going to handle it and possibly how you're going to police it. But that being said, submit request, and now it's just a waiting game. So the next time you see me, we'll figure out if this gets accepted or not. And you can actually go to your profile and see that there is a game request tab, and you'll be able to see what your submission is. You can withdraw the quest. Let's say you screw something up in it and you want to redo it, you can do that there. You can send a message about it. Don't send a bunch of messages about game requests if they take a little bit. Odds are the staff is just really busy, and it does not reflect well on you if you keep sending messages saying, "Where's my game? Where's my game?" But yeah, we'll let time pass and we'll see where this goes. Well, this is not an update I was expecting to make so soon, but the game's been accepted. You can see the notification for it right up here, and they also send out an email telling you when your game has been accepted. You can also see here that the pending request for Tin Star is gone, because it's been accepted. Now when something does get accepted, it doesn't immediately appear because there's some back-end stuff that they set up beforehand, basically putting together a basic page that you can use to then build out the leaderboard. And it looks like this. And it's pretty important that you get to constructing the leaderboard relatively quickly on this site, because they have a policy that if 30 days go by and you haven't done anything with the leaderboard yet, they will just automatically delete it. Also, when your game request does get approved, you are automatically installed as specifically a super moderator, which means that you can control everything about the leaderboard and run approval, stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is edit the game, and this shows you all of the back-end stuff, the basic information about it, the name, release dates. Again, I'll have to fix that if I can get a specific release date down. Here you can list all the platforms the game is on, so we'll click SNES, we'll pick USA because I don't know if it was actually released anywhere else but USA. As you can see, there's various options for timing. You can separate load times, you can use an in-game timer. We're not going to do that for this because there is no in-game timer. You can do individual levels if your game happens to have that option, like Monster Hunter quests have their own individual level timers, Sonic levels will have their own level timers, stuff like that. Emulator runs, you can show them, you can hide them, you can ban them. Banning emulator runs does sound strict, but there have been several instances in the past where they couldn't effectively police certain runs without just getting rid of the emulated ones entirely. Also, certain games on emulators will run faster, load faster, and it creates some really unfair timing issues with people who are playing on legit hardware. There's an option to allow comments on runs, which we're just going to disable that for now to prevent spam. There's timing options in milliseconds if your game goes down that far, or if your game is so competitive that you require that, like Super Mario Bros. For instance, would want to use that. Empty time columns, runs require verification, meaning that a moderator has to look at them and then approve them to be on the leaderboard. Some people use auto-verification, but that presents its own set of problems. Runs require video. You would think that this is kind of a given, but there are a number of legacy runs that don't have a video to accompany them. Auto-verify moderator runs by default. If you have enough of a moderator community behind your game, you might want to have it so that another moderator has to verify another moderator's run. That way, like a moderator who misses something about their run that disqualifies it from a certain category doesn't accidentally put that on the leaderboard. So what I'm going to do right now is I actually have some Tin Star box art I can submit for this. There we are. and leave everything else as is. Save. So as you can see on the front page now, we've got the platform and box art right here. There are no categories yet, so we can go to Edit Game, and then instead of Info, we'll go over to the Categories tab. And you're going to see a few different options: main rules, full game categories, individual levels, individual level categories. Again, individual levels and level categories is not going to be something that this game will be concerned with. We will add full game categories, so we'll do bad ending, we'll do normal ending, and then we'll do quote-unquote good ending. And now you can make the rules for this, although for now we're going to focus on the main game rules. This is where you establish things like timing is the biggest thing. So this is just some basic rules we can have for now. Time starts when selecting Start from Main Menu. Time ends when the final high score screen fades out. Actually, let's rephrase that to starts to fade out. And then any method of control can be used, but specify which one was used in submissions. So now that is saved. Bad ending, normal ending, good ending. We can specify that later, because for now, I want to go over to the variables section. And the whole purpose of this is to add extra things you want the leaderboard to track. So just as an example, with the Bloody Roar leaderboards, there's an extra variable to say which character you used when you did your run. So it's a little something extra you can specify to give more insight on the run. So we'll add an extra variable for control type, and then we'll create some values for this. We'll say controller and super scope and mouse, because those are the three different controllers you can use for this game. And we'll just put mouse up here so it's in alphabetical order and nice and even. And now we're at the tags section. This is just something that can help with discoverability of your game, classification of your game. So you can add series, genre, engine, developer, publisher. We'll just say the genre is rail shooter. The developer for this, I actually have the Wikipedia article still up, so it is Software Creations, and the publisher was Nintendo. Alright, now we'll go back to the categories and specify what all of these mean. So, bad ending in Tin Star requires that you have under a certain threshold of money to trigger the bad ending. So I just specify what the ending is to look for, and then I also throw in the condition for that ending, just in case there's someone who discovers the game and then sees this category and then goes, okay, how do I get that to trigger? We can do the same thing here for the normal ending, the condition for the ending, as well as what the ending is. And finally, a description for the good ending and how to get that, because when you see what the ending is, you understand why good is in quotes. So now we have the basics of the leaderboard set up, we've got some categories set up, we've got an extra variable for the control type, the region set up, but there's no actual runs on the board yet. So even though you submit a run with the game request, you still have to take it upon yourself to put that run into a category manually. Because the leaderboard's not going to be set up when you start working with it, they're not going to automatically have categories in place that you can drop it into. So let's go back to the leaderboard. We'll take the submission that I used for the request for this game, and we will have that as the first run on the leaderboard. The date of the run is a little tricky, but there is an old schedule online for that marathon, so I can use that to look up when I did that run. So that run is from 2017, and it took place on March the 19th. I also gave a basic description of the run. This is actually the one that I talked about in an earlier Tales of a Small-Time Speedrunner episode. I'm also going to take a moment to go back and manually time the run just to make sure that it's accurate, because I noticed that in the video the timer started kind of late. So the time for it is about 51 minutes 14 seconds. I don't have splits set up for this game yet, so that can be completely ignored. platform, Super Nintendo. Yeah, everything looks good here. And there you are, the run is on the leaderboards now. I know that there was someone else out there who did a good ending run for this, and I may reach out to them about possibly getting their run on the board just to help flesh out the leaderboard a little bit. For SRC, it is possible to submit other people's runs onto a leaderboard. I know that because it's happened to me a couple of times, but generally, if you're going to do that, I'd recommend trying to reach out to that runner first. And I think that about does it. From here on out, it's just about responding if someone submits runs to your game or has questions about your game, and also updating the rules if people find certain loopholes in them, which is almost certainly going to happen. And I think that means that this is going to be one of the few episodes of Tales of a Small-Time Speedrunner that doesn't have some pseudo-philosophical rant at the end. I'm just gonna get out of here and say thank you for watching.